Hi there, my name is Gareth Spencer and I'm a technical consultant here at Man & Machine, and today we're going to be looking at Autodesk Docs and specifically the ISO 19650 workflow. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud is a portfolio of solutions providing value from inception through design, manufacture and into build, and then onwards into the operational life cycle of an asset. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform is technology that supports the workflows spanning across design, planning, build and into operational, with data sharing across all phases, connecting the information and making informed decisions through design and construction, and also passing that information and data over at operational phase. So as I mentioned earlier, we are going to look at the Autodesk Docs application, and Autodesk Docs allows us to view and share files directly through a web space in the cloud. It also allows us to set permissions to permit certain users access and restricts access to certain files. It allows us to search and filter information quickly, and also we can set specific custom attributes and configure the application in accordance with project naming conventions and so forth. It also allows us to review information placed in there such as drawings, models, etc. We can also look at the transmittal of information shared between the rest of the design team, and this will allow us to track and audit this information. We can create any issues to prioritise the design and engineering problems that may occur during the project, and also report out on the information that we've produced during the project. So if we look at docs in an ISO 19650 workflow, first of all we need to understand what ISO 19650 is. Well, so I guess my question is, why is the first part of this? Well, basically we have a lot of international clients across the world who are specifying delivery teams to utilise the UK's PAS 1192 suite of documents and the BS 1192 standards as well. Now, as part of this, they felt it a little unfair and therefore suggested an international standard was produced, from which the ISO 19650 was born to bring all the standards in line with each other, therefore allowing everyone to work across projects globally without having to apply or adopt different standards across the different projects. So I guess the who? Well, a working group was formed with representatives from about 16 countries across the globe. In the UK it was led by Dr. Anne Kemp, and from that there was a number of people from the UK BIM Alliance who helped write the ISO 19650 standards themselves. So the ISO 19650 standards is obviously a series. There's a number of standards as part of this: part 1, part 2, part 3 and part 5. There is some proposals for other standards appropriately coming through in due course. But these standards are focusing on information management when building information modelling has been applied or is being applied on a project. Therefore, the standards are covering such things as concepts and principles, delivery and operational phase of assets, and a security-minded approach. So as part of the ISO 19650, we have to implement a CDE, a common data environment, as part of this, which is focusing on information management across the whole life cycle of a project, not just the project itself, but moving into the operational phase also. This is outlined in this diagram here on the right hand side, figure 3, which if you've already been applying the existing standards before this, the PAS 192, you'll see it's very similar. What it allows us to do is consider all the phases of a project, from inception all the way through the delivery phase, which will be the construction or refurbishment, for example, and then back into the operational phase. Now, this may happen a number of times over the asset life cycle, but also considering the number of standards we could apply, not necessarily we will apply as part of this. So there's a couple of things to consider there, that when you're applying something, applying this on a project, you may be also applying other standards also. Now, as part of this, the information itself should be used by managing that information during the asset and the project. So as part of the standard, it sets out that you should have information container states. So for example, when we're producing our information, such as it's work in progress, we've not shared it with the rest of the design team yet, we need to have an area where we can work. within the common data environment, for example. This may be actually in the physical project one, or this could be in your own, where this is not visible to the rest of the design team, it's just visible to you as an organisation. Then from that, we should have the ability to share that data for others to review, to see during the project. So for example, there will be a review process between an internal task team before the information is shared with the wider team. There could be, for example, a document controller who will review the information just to make sure it's correct in what you're sharing, i.e. the drawing says what it should be or the model is what it is, before it's shared with the rest of the design team. So that allows, from the shared point of view, allows the rest of the design team to look at that information, to collaborate and coordinate the information with the rest of the design team that's on the project. And then again, we'll have a necessary review and unauthorized process between that and publishing the information to the rest of the project. So in some contexts, for example, this could be agreed information for construction or handover and operational data that you may provide to the end client or operator of the asset. Now also as part of this, and I've just remembered I've gone back, there's also a consideration to have archive information, so keeping a record of all the information that's provided during the project. So, all previous revisions and so forth, keeping a record of that people can access to. So as part of the Part 2 document, it asks you to, or ask the appointing party to establish a CDE or outline a CDE as part of this. Now, what they should do as well is also enable an information container to have unique ID number. So for example, a document, a drawing that's placed in there. Ideally, an example on the screen here, but the standard doesn't state exactly what the information container ID should be. This is something that needs to be agreed and documented before the project obviously starts. Now in the UK, under Part 2, we have a national annex. And in Part 2, it does state what that container ID should be, which is highlighted on the screen here. And you can see there's a number of fields we'll need to align it to. And again, I just want to reiterate, this is UK specific. Other countries may differ. Also, as part of that, it states that the CDE shall enable information containers to allow the following attributes. So status codes to understand within the common data environment what state it's at. Also a revision container to identify whether it's a preliminary or a contractual revision status. And also a classification. So in the UK specifically, we align ours to Uniclass 2015. Okay, that's enough of the slides. Let's jump into the product. Okay, so now we're into Autodesk Docs. So just briefly before I really go into the sort of demonstration, I want to highlight, if I just pull this over to one side, that my BIM 360 project here on the right hand side and my Autodesk Docs project are working on different projects specifically, but you'll see here we can apply it to both projects, and it works in pretty much the same way. So in Autodesk Docs, inside the Docs environment, we go to Settings and we go to Naming Standard, and then you'll see on this project on the right hand side in BIM 360 I've already assigned it to this project, but it works slightly differently. We have to go into the document management side, Project Admin, and then under the Project Admin we can set the specifics according to this. So you'll see here we've got Naming Standard. If I click into there, under this project we can go in and customize it. Okay, so you'll see this is how it works. Now, just switching over to the Autodesk Docs, you'll see here it sets out the naming convention, and you can see it's very similar on the other side in BIM 360. What it's actually doing in this instance is applying the naming convention out of ISO 19650 Part 2, and it's the national annex that's based on the UK version. Okay, so if it's different across the world in different regions, the naming convention may be different across that. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Another thing to consider as well is the naming convention out of the box doesn't align to the latest update in February this year. but that doesn't matter because you can rename the appropriate attribute fields anyway as you're going through this. So if I hit apply, I'm not going to obviously do anything on the BIM 360 side because it's pretty much the same. I'm just going to show you in the docs, the Autodesk Docs side. So first things first, you'll see here we have the attributes here at the top. We have the relative attributes as well. So obviously you can put in the status codes and revision as part of this. We can enable it to certain folders within the actual BIM, the Autodesk Docs area specifically. Now, if I go into the customize here, actually just one thing to note here, as you do this and you apply this, it will say to you, this is applied, you cannot change this. This is something that you need to just bear in mind. Once you've set this, it's set. So we're going to customize. You'll see here it starts off at the top with the naming convention. So we've got project, we've got originator and so forth. So we'll just start off with the project one. You'll see here, if I click on the edit, what it does, it brings up the title. Now this is set, I can't change this, I can't edit this, but you'll see here it says the type field. So the text field. So basically what it allows the user to do is go in and type in some information within that environment. Okay, so they're allowed to place in, and if I just come down here with the characters, information between 2 and 6 characters, and it's alphanumeric and so forth. I'm going to leave that one as it is. I'm going to the originator. Now this is one I'll need to edit. Can you see here? It's just basically got an example. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to go in and edit this code. And what you'll see, I can just go in and I'm just, for this purpose, I'm putting a short 3-letter code in here and I'm changing the name. Now what you'd have to do in this instance is, at the start of the project, go in, put the appropriate businesses or organizations that are going to work in here. So for example, let's just add another one in here. And this is obviously going to be, for example, like the structural engineer on the project. So they would need to be included. Again, you can go through and add all those in there. Click save. We've got the volume system. So obviously, talking about, for example, the volume, the building itself, which building or asset it is, the level and location. So in this case, is it ground floor plan? Is it a first floor plan, and so forth? This is something you'll have to customize because they put some basic fundamentals in here. And this is based around a simple 2-story building, but you may need to put foundations in and so forth. We've also got the type. So the type of the file, in this case, for example, again, a drawing, a document, whatever it may be. The role, so whoever set this up, so architect, structural engineer, building services engineers, or whoever that may be. And then finally, your drawing number. Okay, so I'm just going to go into the edit on this one, and you'll see again it's locked down in that instance, but we can go in here and set the range between 4 and 6 characters. Again, this is aligning to what ISO 19650 states. But you can obviously remove these and add in others. So if you didn't want any of these fields, you can literally hit the little minus, it will take them away. We can go over to the add button over here on the right hand side, click add, and you'll see in the drop down list they appear again, so we can actually include those. We can go to add in this instance and create other attributes. Now I haven't created any attributes, so I can't add those at the moment. Can you see here they're not available, but we could have created some standard attributes that we can apply in here if we need to. Now other attributes that we can utilize, so for example, if we are applying the ISO 19650 statuses and workflows, then we can put the status code in here. Now again, this is aligned to the old standard, not the new one, so you'll see we've got SO all the way to S7. As you'll know if you've already seen the new update, that SO to S5 now. Okay, it's been rejigged and obviously the naming slightly different. We also got the revision codes. So again, if you're following the same workflows and having the same revision codes, you'll see here we can go in and set the revisions appropriately. So from 3 to 8 characters. So that could be P01, for example, for preliminary information that's work in progress. But then there could be something that's been edited, so it could be 0.01, 2, whatever, and so forth. And obviously once it's shared. And then classification codes. So you'll see here it defaults to Uniclass. So if you don't know Uniclass, it's run by the MBS. Uniclass is our classification system we use here in the UK. Now as part of that, I'm just on the Uniclass website, exactly where you can find the information, but you'll see here the classification codes associate to the industry specific. So whether it's a document, whether it's an element that's in a building, Now I'm not going into too much detail, but you can download Excel spreadsheets with all the lists. You can go into the list here and you'll see there's already some sign set up, but if you type in the description, so for example, if you go into the search box here and start to type in what you're looking for, it should populate a list appropriately, and you'll see here I was looking for BIM execution plan, and it's populated the BIM execution plan and some other bits and bobs as well, because obviously I didn't fill in the full text, which is looking at the metadata. So what that's doing inside Autodesk Docs is allowing you to assign a classification field within the folders themselves, and when you apply it to the object that you've uploaded, so whether it's a document with a model or so forth. You'll see here, here's a preview of what it will look like inside Autodesk Docs. We can change the delimiter to hyphen, underscore or point, for example. I tend to just leave it as it is. Once you're done and you're happy with that, if you hit save, then you'll see it will start to apply it to the project. Again, bear in mind, once you've done this, it's locked. You can't change that. So we need to assign it to a folder now, and you'll see if we go in here, I'm going to the specific area. So I'm going to use for the projects fields part. Sorry, I'm going to ignore for the fields part and go in the project files area for now. So a couple of things. Obviously, I want to do it definitely to my handover documents, because obviously if I'm handing it over at the end of a project, I want to make sure they're all named appropriately for the client. I'm going to do it, you know, for these folders here, even though they're for Clash. I'm going to look at the approval one. I'm going to make sure it's applied to those, and you'll see here, if I apply it to the main folder, it will apply automatically to a subfolder. If I want to just apply it to, for example, one subfolder or just the subfolders, I need to select them specifically. But if I go and change the main folder, it will update them all. Okay, so I can go in here and do that specifically and set the folders. Now, one thing that this is something that discussions with clients before in the past is, should the work in progress area have the naming convention applied? Well, to be honest, it probably makes it life a bit easier, because obviously if you're assigning something into your common data environment and the work in progress is just letting you save it to whatever you want, bear in mind you've got to name it appropriately when you show the file across to a different location. So I always preset that, you know, what's the point of having to do more work? Why don't you set it right the first time? I'm going to leave the tender submitting area second here, because what you'll notice is if I select this, obviously we can assign that and actually turn it on as well. But what I'm going to do is, obviously at tender submission stage, in this case, I'm going to leave that because I'm going to be working with people who are submitting stuff, and I'm not asking for them to apply a naming convention right now. So I hit save, it will then apply it to those folders. So if we switch back to the files area, now just bear in mind, as I mentioned earlier, if you talk about attributes, you'll see now it's created the attributes list here. So if we come down, here are all the attributes added in, and there's the other attributes that we had before. So you can rename, sorry, not rename, you can reposition the location of what these are. Now, if you click on the little dots on the far right hand side, you'll see I can go edit. So if I go into here, you'll see I can now edit the values. So in this case, for example, say somebody else joins the project, which is, you know, it's going to happen during the project itself. I can go in here and I can start to put in the company details. So I'm not going to have a problem further down the line and going, okay, this team's joined the project. I can now not add them in as an attribute, and they're going to have to use something that's already predefined. It's going to update and it's going to apply it to all these specific folders. So I'm going to go save. Okay, so I've now customized that. But again, what it's doing, and when you go into the folder structure, you'll see all these fields. So I go to my files area, and you'll see now the areas that has it applied have a little tick on top of the little folder itself. So you'll see under tender submission, that doesn't. First things first, I'm going to go and populate some files in here. So for example, I'm going to send some files across for an approval process with the document controller on this. So I'm going to literally just drag and drop a file in here. Okay, now actually, just for information purposes, so say I'm the document manager on the project, I need to share documents with the rest of the design team. I've got my OIR here, so actually what I'm going to do, just go into my briefing documents, I'm going to drag and drop. So what will happen is, as you drag and drop that file in there, what it will do, it'll start to look at the file name. So I'm just going to drag my field across here. So you'll see here, this was the file I've just copied across. It's got the file name, it's got all the appropriate, the organization name and all the relevant fields. What's happened as it's done this, you'll see here, here's the file I'm uploading. it's extracted the information out of here automatically because it's read the file. So it knows that this is the company I work for. This is the file name. Now actually I've made a mistake. The file project, so to say, is actually 2010, not 2001. Where it struggled at the end here, because I had an underscore OAR, I'm going to have to remove that as part of there. So now the file name is 0001. The status in this case I'm going to select as S0, and I'm just going to put it as P1 in this case. So you'll see I can start to name the appropriate fields. Great thing that happens there is if something doesn't comply, which that is not complying, you'll see here it's saying, oh, that won't work. So what will happen is if I click the upload button, this will not upload directly to the project, and you'll see that in a second. If I go to the classification field, so looking at the MBS again, I can type in here. So if I say, for example, an exchange, this will come up with information exchange. Now, this is not my exchange information requirements. This is just information exchange. So I'm just going to select that classification code for now. Now, obviously, I would go in there and make sure it has the correct classification code assigned. So if I go upload, and you'll see here, it will tell me it's going to upload to this folder. Go upload. It's going to go through the process. If it uploads fine, that means all the fields are correct. If it doesn't upload, then there's a potential problem because it doesn't comply with the necessary fields. So if I just leave that going now and let it do its thing, it will either save it into there or it will put it into this holding area here. Now, if I'm utilizing, for example, AutoCAD, I can save my AutoCAD files directly to the cloud as well. So I'm in my drawing here. If I go to my A and go File, Save As, I can select my Docs environment, go through to my hub, and then in the hub I can scroll down, find the project, go into the specific location. Now this is my structural engineer, so I'm just going to save this in here. So you'll see here is the file name, and again I have got incorrect naming at the end. If I go save, it should start to save the process of the file to my my hub. Now, one thing to be wary of, if I go in and open my desktop connector, is my desktop connector will inform me any potential problems with the file uploading. Now you'll see here it's not identified anything in that instance, but if I go into my project, you'll see here, oh look, this one hasn't loaded because it's gone to the holding area, and I can click on view and it will take me to the holding area, which is over here. And you'll see, oh look, we have two files that need to be looked at. So first of all, this is the PDF I dragged and dropped in here. If I go into the rename, now if I just change that to P1 and click save, it will start the process and pop it into the correct folder. The same applies with my DWG file here. Again, I need to select this and go rename. So you can see here, first of all, it didn't understand the correct name associated to this list. So if I go in here, so correct that, and again, because there's text at the end of there, it's not picked that up properly. So I'll go in here, type in the relevant fields, okay, and let's see if we can pick up a. Actually, I'll just click one of these for now. I'm not really bothered about that. I can always change that anyway. So click save, and the file will be uploaded. So what it's doing is putting the file into the holding area until the file's ready, and you'll see this one's in here now. And if I just drag this across, so for example, we could, with regards to the description, it doesn't automatically fill that out, but once you fill that out, so for example, this is the OIR, and that will obviously stay there itself. So what will happen, if I just drag this across, you'll see there's all the fields been populated automatically. So as I go and upload the file again, I can change the revision code. Now bear in mind, this revision code is not the same as the version. The version is the file that you've saved in there. Okay, so that could be saved in there 10 times in one day, so that could be version 10. The revision code could stay at P1, for example, because you could just be, well, I'm working on the file, I'm not ready to share this file yet, so it remains as P1 because I'm saving it back and forth during the day as I've done something, so it's updating and keeping a record of that information. So the same will apply to if I go into the work in progress area and go to my structural engineering, you'll see there is my structures file. Now because I'm working on it, it's locked. Okay, but if I close that down now, you'll see. Now great thing about this is I can still access my files through my AutoCAD here, so nice and easy. If I go into my Revit, the same thing applies. So as I'm going into Revit here, now depending whether you work setting the file or not, there's several different steps, but if I just go File, Save As, Cloud Model, and I'm going to save this in there. But as I do this, what I'm going to do this time is make sure my name is correct on the file, so as it goes in, it should just populate automatically. So just simply going in here, do the search, find the right project, go into the right location. So again, because this is a work in progress model, I'm going to go in here. I'm just going to change the name of the company because this is my structural engineers. I'm going to change that, and that should be pretty much. Sorry, that's not my structural engineers. It's my my architect. So actually, make sure I get the right name. Whoops, that's right. Okay, so that should be correct. And if we save it to the right folder, save. That should go through the process and load it in. And again, what it should do, if there's a potential problem with this, it will show a message on the screen to say this doesn't comply as it uploads, but hopefully this will go in okay. And again, the same principle applies. If there's any pending actions, it will tell me locally on my desktop connector, but also, excuse me, if I go into here, the file should either load into here automatically if the name is correct, or it will go into the holding area there that someone, for example, the administration document controller, will have to go in and correct that appropriately. So you'll see that's going through the save process. Now the same thing should apply to your local files. So here is my desktop connector with all the files populated in here. So if I'm submitting something for approval, you know, whatever it may be, so it could be a document, it could be a file as part of this. So for example, if I'm going to go in here, oh, there you go, the model's saved in the background. So that's great. So if I go into here, I want to populate a file. So I've got a document here, and I'm going to drag and drop that in. So that document is a PDF of AutoCAD drawing I did earlier. So I've dragged and dropped that in there, and you'll see it's not named appropriately. So again, there's no pending actions. So hopefully what's happening here, if I go back into my project, you'll see there is my model uploading, and I'm hoping now that the approval process here for my structural engineers model, drawing, should be going through into here. There you go. So as mentioned, basically it's allowing you to upload the file, but in this instance I need to make sure that the naming is appropriately. So again, I just need to go in here, check the right company, change the right file name and status code in here, and put in that, and obviously put the classification code in. Again, I'll just put it, I need to select on this one in this instance, hit save, and then you'll see the files moved in that area. Okay, so it's a good way to control the information between others on the project. Okay, so now we have a number of files in there, you'll see, and this one obviously is in here, is for approval. So again, I don't know how you'll set your projects up. They could be all different. I've done them as states here. So I've got my work in progress, my shared, my published. I've got the approval process in here based around, this could be my document controller has to see all files being shared or published on the project before they move in there. You know, for instance, they are looking at if the file is the correct file, if the, for example, a PDF drawing, just select on this one here, probably a good example, is the PDF the correct PDF? So in this instance, you can see here, you know, there's the PDF. If I scroll in, you can see, I can see all the relevant information. It's got the right drawing, and actually I can see now that drawing name or number, I should say, is incorrect based around, because it says that on there, that point, and here. So this will allow me to do a check on the file before it's issued to anybody else. So what we can do, this could be, for example, the structural engineers who want to now share this for review. So I'm just going to go in and submit this for review. So bear in mind, well, in this instance, I have got access as admin, so I can see all these things. But you'll see here, this is set up for review. Now, this one's based on an architect, but it doesn't really matter for this purpose. But you would have one, for, in essence, each organisation, or a default one, which could be used by, every organisation. So what I want to do is, in this instance, I've got a project file that wants to be submitted for approval before it goes to the shared area. So I want to go in here. Okay, so I'm going to draw an issue for shared information. Okay, so we'd make sure that we give them appropriate data. Obviously, you can see here. Now, what will happen? Sorry, I don't want to maximize that. Here you'll see it's telling me the version number. Okay. If there's a potential problem in transferring the file from one location, there'll be a little red circle with a question mark in there to state that you can't do that. For example, like the naming convention is incorrect or something. We can always rename this as well. This is a relatively new feature here. We can rename the file as it goes through into different folder location. Now, the only thing with that is you need to obviously know what the file name is or is going to be, so you can do that. So in this instance, I'm going to click submit. So that'll go through the process. Phil will then get a notification going, please can you review and share this drawing for design teams. Okay, so you put it through, and now we've got review process. Now, if I go into the reviews, and you'll see there should be a review in here. If I click on this and look at the review, you'll see there is the file. Obviously, we can select the file to view that, so you can see. Sorry, I want to do the review first. So I'm going to go and start the review. Okay, so if I go into here, obviously, then I can look at the file, make sure everything's okay from a document controller point of view. Now, I'm assuming there's going to be hundreds of drawings shared regular. What you may find is the document controller may just check one or two of them, not all of them. So I'm going to select approved, click submit for review, everything okay, submit. So obviously this is keeping a record then that it's been through an approval process. It's now taking a copy of the file. What it will do, obviously, in the similar way as you would do normally with review, it will stick a green tick on the file, both in the original location and in the copied area. So what you'll see if we go back to where we was, now because the naming's correct, so if we start off in the first location under structural engineer here, you'll see there's the file. If I scroll all the way to the other side, you should see status is approved. Great stuff. So we know that's been transferred across. And then if we go to the shared area, there should be the file located there. And you can see there is the file now, and there is the approval. Nice, easy way to work with the file itself. Now, as you can imagine, this functionality in here is being updated all the time. So where there's certain things it may not do today, Autodesk are working on that in the background. I hope you found that useful and a good overview of how it will work. Thanks very much. Take care. Bye-bye.